For anybody who doesn't know, when you come to the center, when you come here on Wednesdays or Saturday or on Monday, for anyone who's new, because I see some new faces here, you are welcome to bring some water, room temperature water. Don't bring it too cold. And our magnetizers will magnetize the water. And what happens is, through magnetism, it changes the water. And when you drink that water, it's beneficial to you. Whatever you need, if you need something could be happening in your life, or you could be dealing with some kind of physical ailments or some kind of illness. The magnetized water helps with that. So what this talk really focuses on is kind of how water is weird. How water is special and different, and how it's so unique compared to other substances on this planet. A lot of things about water, based on what we know about how physics works and how the elements work and how molecules work, water kind of breaks a lot of those rules. So I want to talk about those different aspects about water, so that way we can kind of understand more how the physical action of magnetizing the water with our energy changes the physical properties of the water. So that's what I'm going to be exploring in this talk today. So water is mysterious. So we're going to talk about the different mysteries of water. The first slide, I'm just going to go over the basics. Some of this stuff, I'm sure everybody already knows. Like, most of us know that water covers about 71% of the Earth's surface. 96.5% of the Earth's water is found in the oceans. 3% of the Earth's water, only 3% of the Earth's water is fresh water, but 2.5% of that water, of all the water, is locked in glaciers, the polar ice caps, mountain snow, in the atmosphere as water vapor, and in the soil. And less than 0.5% of all the water available on the planet is available as drinkable fresh water. So that's the water in the ground, like the groundwater where we usually get our water from to drink, and the rivers and lakes. So less than 0.5% of all the water that exists on the planet is available as drinking water. Just to give you an idea of how much water actually makes up the planet, the Earth's mass, water makes up less than 0.1% of the entire mass of the Earth. It's actually less than 0.02%. So even though the water, we see water everywhere and it covers the entire planet, it's really a small, tiny percentage of the planet. And over a person's lifetime, we're going to drink about 2 million gallons, or in liters, it's about 7.5 million liters in a person's average life. So it's a lot of water that we drink throughout our life. So here is the first kind of question. Why is water a liquid on the Earth's surface? Over 70% of the Earth's surface is covered by water. What's interesting about all this water is that we aren't sure why water collects as a liquid on the surface of the Earth. So water is made of H2O. That's probably the most famous molecule on the planet. Everyone knows what H2O is, right? It's hydrogen. It's 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen. So hydrogen is naturally a gas, and it's the lightest of all the elements. It's just 1 proton, 1 electron, and 1 neutron. Oxygen is also naturally a gas. However, when you combine hydrogen and oxygen together, 2 hydrogen and 1 oxygen, they form large amounts of liquid on the surface of the Earth. And similar molecules of the same weight, shape, size, or both, they're all gases. So water. So here's on the left is a water molecule. So H2O, 2 hydrogen and 1 oxygen, and on the right is hydrogen sulfide, which is 2 hydrogens and 1 sulfide atom. Hydrogen sulfide is a byproduct that our bodies produce as part of the metabolism process. But here, I'm pointing out this particular molecule because hydrogen sulfide, it weighs twice as much as water does, but yet it exists as a gas, and water exists as a liquid. It also has the same shape. It has the same number of hydrogen atoms, but that's the first mystery. All the molecules that have the same structure and the same shape and the same weight, they're all gases. But for some reason, on the surface, H2O is liquid. And if you think about it, liquids are actually extremely rare on this planet that exist in their natural state. If you think about water, most liquids are water-based. So you think of blood is water-based. Any kind of juice or anything you drink, coffee, it's all water-based. Can anyone think of any other liquid on this planet that isn't water-based?
That is not.
That's not water-based. A liquid. Anything? Oil? Oil is liquid, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mercury.
Yeah, okay. Okay. All right.
Right.
Yeah, it does. It's rare to find liquid mercury though naturally.
Oh,
You know what I mean? Like it's usually locked in with other minerals in the earth.
okay.
You're not going to find a pool of mercury like you would a pool of water, you know?
But mercury also is water-based.
You can. If you extract it from a mineral and you have it in like a room temperature,
Uh-huh.
depending on the temperature, it could be a liquid.
Yeah, but it's,
Right, right.
I don't.
So another one, you could make an exception for lava. Even though it comes from the underground, it's molten rock, it's liquid rock. So I mean, it does come from underground. It's magma underground, and once it reaches the surface, it's lava. So you could make an exception during like a volcanic eruption. There's some liquid there, it's molten. Ammonia is also found as liquid, but it's kind of rare to find it as liquid. So it's kind of that's another very strange thing about water is that it's so abundant as a liquid on the surface, and yet nothing really, there's no other really other liquid besides oil that exists like that. And even oil doesn't exist on the surface of the earth. So that's another interesting thing about water. Why is it all there? Another interesting thing about water is that water exists in all three phases on the surface of the earth. So it exists as a gas, as water vapor, it exists as water as a liquid, and it exists as ice as a solid. So believe it or not, water as water vapor, water and ice, it's the only naturally occurring substance that you find it naturally in all three phases on the surface of the earth. There's no other molecule in the entire planet that exists naturally on the surface of the earth in all three phases. So here I have a question. Is there a fourth phase of water? We're gonna talk about that a little bit later in the talk. So here are some more unique properties about water. And keep in mind, this all has to do with magnetizing water and how water holds this energy and keeps this energy within the water. Water has the highest heat capacity of all liquid and solid substances with the exception of ammonia. This means that water can absorb large amounts of heat and energy before it even changes temperature. Now, conversely, the other two phases of water, which is ice and, just looking at ice and fresh snow reflects almost all heat and energy. It reflects almost 90% of solar radiation that hits it, and that's the highest value of any naturally occurring substance on the planet. So think about it, you have the same molecule. As a liquid, it can absorb enormous amounts of energy, but once it freezes, it starts reflecting all that energy back into the atmosphere and it stays as ice. The ocean as a whole, it only changes on average about 3 to 4 degrees. That's it, the entire ocean. And it slowly releases that energy over time. The water vapor that's in the air, it contributes to 2/3 of the greenhouse effect. So whenever we have this warming effect in the atmosphere that keeps us nice and warm, right now we're technically in like a little mini ice age, but it doesn't feel like that because the greenhouse effect is so strong, it's keeping us warm in the middle of this supposed ice age. So we hear a lot about greenhouse gases like methane and carbon dioxide, but water really is the primary contributor to the greenhouse effect. It can hold a lot of energy and heat in the air. And together, the greenhouse effect, water vapor, and ice, and the oceans, they help regulate global temperatures. This is why we have certain climates in certain areas, and why we have partially the reason why we have the seasons as intense or not intense as year to year. And here, I have a quote from No Solar, chapter 10, The Forest of Waters. And this is Lazayas speaking to Andre Luis. He says, our understanding of water enables us to know that it is one of the most powerful vehicles for fluids of any nature. So here, don't get confused by the word fluids, because water is obviously a fluid, but what it's talking about is talking about our energy. It's talking about if you were to magnetize water, it's talking about our vibrations. So water is one of the most powerful vehicles for fluids of any nature. So here are some more unique properties. We all know that ice floats in water. This happens because it expands when it freezes. So you have a certain amount of water, and then when you freeze it, it takes up more space. So now it weighs less because it's taking up more space over more area. So that's why it floats when it freezes. This is not normal. Usually when a liquid turns into a solid, it sinks. There are very few substances and elements that have this property. Because of this, the ice creates a layer above the water, protecting life in the ocean from even colder temperatures and harmful radiation from the sun. So remember, the ice is reflecting, the ice that floats, which is already weird, and goes to the top. Now, once it goes to the top, now it's reflecting all that radiation back out, so it's protecting the life underneath the water. This is part of the reason why. A lot of scientists believe that life started in the ocean, because the ice was protecting the life in the ocean from harmful UV rays and harmful sunlight. So here are some interesting things talking about life. So life on Earth needs water. So far on the Earth, we have discovered life that can survive in extreme heat, so above 250 degrees Celsius, and for those who aren't too good with 250 degrees Fahrenheit, and to convert that into Celsius is 121 degrees Celsius. We have discovered life that can survive in extreme cold, so minus 20 degrees Celsius, minus 4 degrees Fahrenheit. We have discovered life that can live deep underground. We have discovered life at the bottom of the ocean, in highly acidic environments, in highly toxic environments. Under extreme pressure, we can find life. We can find life that can survive without oxygen. And this is a picture of loriciferans, which they were first discovered in 2010 at the very bottom of the ocean. The scientists went down to the bottom of the ocean. They collected sediments and soil from the bottom of the ocean. They discovered a bunch of life down there, and this is one of the organisms that they discovered down there. And they're living underground without light and without oxygen. So without sunlight. We have also discovered organisms that can survive high ultraviolet exposure. And without other life, what that means is that we have discovered life that can survive independently without the help of other life. Like for us, we need the help of other life. We have bacteria in our bodies, we have bacteria on our skin. We couldn't survive without the bacteria or even the fungus that's inside of our bodies, helping us to metabolize food, digest, and live. So they've discovered life that can survive completely independent without help from any other life. But so far, we have not discovered a single organism on this planet that can survive without water. Every single organism on this planet needs water. So there are some bacteria. So some bacteria, they don't use oxygen. They use arsenic, which is toxic to most organisms. And it's interesting because usually when we look for life on other planets, we're looking for that water requirement, because we have not been able to discover anything on this planet that can survive without water now. Could life survive without water? Probably on a different planet. We don't know, but that has yet to be determined. So putting things into perspective. Okay. So water exists in 3 phases on the Earth's surface. It expands and takes up more space as a solid. So these are all things that are unique to, not unique to water, but very unique aspects of a material. Life on Earth does not exist without water. This is part of the reason why most scientists believe life began in the ocean. It does conduct electricity. So it conducts electricity. It's a universal solvent, able to dissolve more substances than any other liquid. So I wrongly thought that water conducted electricity, but pure water does not conduct electricity. It's only because of all of the materials that water has dissolved. that's the reason why it can conduct electricity, and it actually becomes a very, very good conductor of electricity because of everything that it can dissolve. Yeah, you can find almost all the elements in water. Water can absorb large amounts of heat and energy. And this is interesting. Water makes up 99% of your molecules. I didn't talk about this earlier. I kind of just wanted to talk about it briefly here. So most people have heard that water makes up like 60, 70% of your body. But the water molecules are so small compared to other molecules that 99% of your molecules are water in your body. So think about that: your teeth, your bones, like your brain, like 99% water, and we're still held together. We're still physical. We can still, touch each other. We have no problems moving around. But it's very interesting to think about that when almost all of your molecules are made up of water. And the last thing to remember is that it's strange that it's even a liquid at all. Another question is that scientists often debate is that we don't know. Scientists can't decide where all the water came from. Like the amount of water that we have on this planet, it doesn't make sense. We don't. From the theory of how Earth was created, there's one idea that the water came from the rocks and then created the oceans. It's kind of, most people say that doesn't really make sense. The only other scientific theory that's really accepted is that the water came here from meteor strikes and comets and other things hitting the Earth. So a lot of water would have had to come to us in that way. But I'm not going to get into it in this talk, but in some of the Spiritist books, it talks about water as the vital fluid, and that's what it was brought here. It was brought here, by spiritually, and it's necessary for life on this planet. So here's a question: can humankind penetrate some of the secrets of nature through scientific investigations and research? So let's see. So now we're going to go through some experiments. So this is a very famous scientist. His name is Dr. Masaru Emoto, and he did some experiments on what he called water consciousness or water memory. Dr. Emoto was a Japanese scientist and one of the world's most influential water researchers. He studied and demonstrated how water transforms when it is exposed to human words, emotions, thoughts, and other things like music. His work is documented in the New York Times bestseller, The Hidden Messages in Water. His work is also featured in the movie What the Bleep Do We Know and in other documentaries and journals. So the experiments he did were called water consciousness. So water consciousness. So what he did was he had two jars of water, two containers of water, and then on one he would either have someone consciously thinking or praying a certain idea, or he would label them with like a piece of paper on the jar. Does anybody are you guys from? I know you are familiar with this. So you guys has anyone not heard of this?
I know.
The water. You never heard of this, really? Okay. Most people have heard about this. Okay. Yeah, it's been, I think, almost 20 years since he's done these experiments. So it's been talked about a lot in different documentaries, like I mentioned. So that's what he did. So then after the jars or the samples were exposed to a certain idea or a certain word, what he did was he froze the water and then analyzed them under a microscope to see the crystal structure. So the first example here of what he exposed the water to. So water exposed to emotions and thoughts. The one on the left was exposed to love and gratitude, and the one on the right was exposed to evil. So once he froze the water and looked at it under a microscope, you can see on the left it's a nice, symmetrical, crystal structure, and the one on the right is like a mess.
It looks like a snowflake.
Yeah, it looks like a snowflake, the one on the left, right? And then and the one on the right, this is what happened with the evil. So here's more water exposed to emotions and thoughts. So the one on the left was the word peace, and the one on the right was you disgust me. So here is another one. This is polluted water exposed to prayer. So these are photographs of water from the Fujiwara Dam before and after. The chief priest of the Juonhyun Temple, Katohoki, offered an hour-long prayer over it. So the one on the left this time is the one that was not prayed on. So water crystal before Buddhist prayer from the dam. And the one on the right was after an hour-long prayer. The same water that you see on the left, this is after Buddhists prayed on it. Now it changed its structure. Everything about the water changed.
It's weird. It continues to look like a snowflake.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. So one thing, one thing to remember about these experiments is that these kind of emotions, they're not only very influential as thoughts that we put out, but they are also influential internally. These are affecting us when we think these ideas. We're mostly water, remember. It puts our minds and bodies into chaos whenever we have these thoughts. Another thing about these types of experiments, because what happened with this is that this type of experiment, it's hard to ground it in what's known scientifically. So a lot of people, they try to replicate these types of experiments and they weren't able to do it. You could maybe think there was some type of contamination there with the person doing the experiment. Maybe they weren't really understanding what the background of this experiment was, but it's very hard some people tried to replicate this and they ran into problems because it doesn't necessarily follow a rigid scientific method. It's not, follow step A, B, and C and you're gonna get this result. This has a lot of variation to it because it's dealing with, thoughts, emotions, your energy, and vibration. Okay, so how is this possible? We're going to take a look at a quote from No Solar. This is chapter 10, The Forest of Waters. This is Lysias, again to Andre Louise. He says, human beings will understand that water is a creative fluid that absorbs the mental characteristics of each home's inhabitants. Water not only carries the residues of the body, but the impressions of our mental life as well. Remember again, you are mostly water. So we're going to ask this question again. Can humankind penetrate some of the secrets of nature through scientific investigations and research? So this is the fourth phase that I mentioned earlier. So this is, it gets a little complicated, but not too complicated. So if you look at the left side of the diagram, the grayish part, think of that as like a barrier. And then the blue kind of layers there on the right side, those are layers of water. So in this experiment, what this gentleman did, I'm sorry, I don't have his name here. What he did was they had a material, like it was either a solid or a gel, something that was a little bit different than water, and they filled a reservoir next to that barrier full with water. And what they found was that the negatively charged water would stick to the side of the barrier, and then the positively charged water would move away from it. So what was happening is once they analyzed the water, they started to realize that the water was actually starting to form a structure similar to ice. That picture that's highlighted there in the bubble, it's the same as ice, but it's not ice because it's not frozen. But yet the water was forming these layers. And what they found was just as not really a mistake, but just something that happened in the laboratory one day, somebody was walking by with like a lamp or some kind of light by next to the experiment that they were doing. And they saw that the more energy entered the system, the more layers the water created. So the more energy that you were, not heat, light, infrared, the more energy that you were applying to the water, the more layers that the water was making. So the more that it was pushing itself, the negatively charged was on the left, it started to form these layers of water that were similar to ice, like a barrier, and then the positively charged water was moving to the right. So I brought this up. This research is still kind of in the early phases. There's only been, I think, one person involved with it, but I'm bringing this up because number one, there's a lot of things about water that we still don't understand, even though we're surrounded by it. It's around us all over, everywhere. We need it, we drink it every single day. There's still secrets, in these things that we think are, just basic, parts of our life. There's secrets there that we still haven't uncovered yet. And also, this is looking at how energy is affecting the water directly. So if you think about the energy that we have, if we're directing it with our intention, think about what kind of effect that's going to have on the water. Then the next two slides are going to show some interesting characteristics about water that our normal understanding of water doesn't really cover, but understanding this fourth phase of water kind of makes sense when you look at these next two experiments. So here you see two beakers of water, and there's a bridge of water in between the two beakers. Now, there's an electric current going through the water, which is why this little bridge is created. But the idea was of why this occurred. So it creates a bridge of up to 25 millimeters. That's almost 1 inch. So it's a bridge of solid. It's not, the water isn't even bending. It's not even drooping. It's a straight line. So the idea in the past was that surface tension and the cohesion between the water molecules is what was causing this, but it doesn't really make sense because it's not drooping, it's not sagging, it's not anything. So they're thinking that somehow that energy that's being applied to the water is creating some kind of layers, some kind of fourth phase layers that's creating like a solid bridge between the water. Another thing that water does is, you would think that if you were to take a drop of water and drop it into more water, it would just immediately get absorbed into the water, but that doesn't actually happen. What happens is the water stays as a drop on top of the surface of the water before it combines with the water, and it can do this for several seconds before it actually combines with the water. So it's kind of, I thought it was cool, so that's why I added it. I don't really have like a direction to go with it, but it's something that water does that doesn't really make sense based on what conventionally we know. But when looking at how water kind of creates a barrier, water can even create a barrier between itself. So before we go into the next section, just remember that this was all ideas and getting you to think about unique characteristics of water to try and understand how magnetism works and how the water can hold that energy and hold that idea inside of it. So I'm going to talk about Mesmer. So Mesmer was a scientist, and he was kind of the first person, maybe not the first person, but one person who really studied magnetism. He studied animal magnetism, the magnetism of the planets, how that affects us. He did a lot of, he was a physician. He did a lot of work with patients with magnetism, and he was able to heal a lot of people through this work. So Mesmer theorized through his work that organisms possess a type of energy field, and he called this energy animal magnetism. It was an invisible natural force possessed by all living creatures, and this energy had a physical effect on objects or other organisms. It was Mesmer's belief that illnesses were caused by a disruption of the body's natural energy flow. Overcoming these obstacles could possibly restore a person to good health, and a person could use their own energy to help and heal others. It's possible simply through an action of goodwill alone to transfer this energy in a helpful manner to another person or an object. Especially water, because remember, it can carry, hold, transfer, and remember large amounts of energy. So this is from the Medium's book by Alan Kardec, was chapter 8, question number 131, and it's also in Jacob Mello's book. For those of you who don't know, Jacob Mello is a well-known magnetizer, and he wrote this book called The Past Giver's Manual, which is available in English and Portuguese. And what was said in both of those books actually was the acting agent is the magnetizer's spirit, who in some cases is assisted by a discarnate spirit. It causes a transmutation by means of the magnetic fluid, which is the substance most nearly like cosmic matter or the universal element. So just to continue on the magnetized water, Deleuze was another well-known magnetizer from the past, and these are some of the things that he mentioned having to do specifically with water. A magnetizer can communicate his fluids to many objects. Magnetized water is one of the most powerful and salutary healing agents that can be employed. In internal diseases especially, magnetized water acts in an astonishing manner. It carries the magnetism directly to the organs affected. The effect of magnetized water is the same as if having taken ordinary medicine. So Deleuze was a physician of his time. He was a naturalist. He studied the natural world, the natural phenomenon, nature. And working in magnetism, these people, they didn't have a foundation in Spiritism, like we have today. They were just focused on the science. They were just focused on the nature. This was a phenomenon that they were experiencing and that they were engaged with their patients, and yet there wasn't really a scientific basis for it. It was more, I don't want to say supernatural because it's not, but it could have been seen that way in that time, even today. Okay, I think I have a. So these quotes were taken from his book Practical Instruction in Animal Magnetism, which was written in 1850. So quite a while ago. So just to continue along the same idea again, how is this possible? This is again No Solar, the Forest of Waters. Water not only carries the residues of the body, but the impressions of our mental life as well. So many of these topics and experiments that were discussed, as well as many other odd experiments and investigations that go on today, have gone on throughout history that question our knowledge of the world, of nature, and of reality, and are often considered pseudoscience. So pseudoscience is like, everyone knows what that word means. It's like science, but not real science. It's like, fake science. We used to think that things like electricity and telephones were impossible, and the people who were forwarding these kinds of ideas were disregarded. These things now are not only overwhelmingly common, they're fundamental to our lives. Many scientists, doctors, researchers are inspired by this kind of work, but they are usually met by overwhelming skepticism and harsh criticism. It's difficult to replicate this kind of work, partly because we don't fully understand all of the different spiritual aspects and physical forces that are at work and that surround us, and partly because we easily accept things and simple explanations and don't explore within ourselves or question the world around us. And anyone can be a scientist or a researcher. All you have to do is ask questions. The unexamined life is not worth living. That was a famous quote by our friend Socrates. So a third time I'm going to ask this question: can humankind penetrate some of the secrets of nature through scientific investigations and research? So this question was actually a question that was in the Spirits book that Allan Kardec asked the spirits. It was question number 19. And the answer that he received was, science is a means of development for human beings. The farther humans penetrate the investigation of these mysteries, the greater their veneration of the power and wisdom of the Creator should be. However, due to pride and weakness, human intelligence often leads to misconceptions, or the complete, this part in italics, I added that myself, or the complete rejection of phenomenon that is beyond their scope of understanding and means of examination. Every single day, they learn how many errors they have mistaken for truths and how many truths they have dismissed as errors. So, in short, keep an open mind. So when you bring your water here and the magnetizers magnetize it, understand that it's not. Understand a little bit more of the science behind what's actually happening. First of all, water is a very unique material. It's capable of holding a memory. It's capable of holding a ton of energy. It's capable of changing under our influence and intention. And not just water. We can do. You can magnetize a chair if you wanted to magnetize a chair, but the water is obviously something that we take into our body, and it's also something that we have a strong influence over. And the water itself has the ability to remember what we're telling it, what we're doing to it. So when you bring your water here, when you drink magnetized water in any form, just remember that it's not someone just waving their hands or on it. Try to understand the actual science behind it, and that it's not necessarily. Well, I was going to say it's not supernatural. I mean, everything that we experience, even mediumship, it's all part of the natural world. Some of it is more understood than others. Some of it is more accepted than other knowledge. But it's all part of nature. It's all a natural phenomenon. So the magnetism of water, and it's something that we've seen, throughout time, throughout humanity. When you get baptized, you take someone, you cleanse them with the water, and it cleanses them of they're reborn again, because the water is washing away your energies and it's cleansing you. You can think of holy water. The priests they pray on the water, they bless it, and the water changes properties. It becomes something different. So that's the idea behind the science behind the magnetism and the magnetizing specifically of water, and how water is special and how it's unique, and how we should look at it differently and not take it for granted. There's a lot of things, there's a lot of mystery still that we have to discover about everyday, things that we have that we take for granted in our everyday life. That's really all I wanted to bring. So that is the end. But I open to anyone if they want to ask any questions about any of the science or anything, or about the magnetism. Feel free to ask any questions.
Do you have any picture that shows what happened to the water when they get magnetized?
No, but I mean, I guess you can look at the Dr. Emoto's, the Dr. Emoto's, yeah, like this is, it's basically magnetism. You're praying on the water, you're thinking a certain thought, your intention, your thoughts and emotions are going to the water, and it's changing the physical property of the water.
That looked like a snake eye.
A snake eye, yeah.
Do you think the person helps when the actual person knows what they're drinking, instead of just walking out of the past and drink the water without thinking, without devotion, without? You think that if we add that, like the knowledge will be more effective?
I want to say yes. I do want to say yes, because your thoughts have a very strong influence, not only on you but on others around you. I would say that even if you weren't thinking that, the water would still have an effect, but it would definitely have more of an effect if I guess you can think of it as you're consciously drinking the water and what it could do for you, and not consciously drinking it and what it could do for you. And you can think about that as any part of your life. When you're consciously doing something, it has that much more meaning to it. And when you're unconsciously doing it, you're kind of on autopilot. Yes, it might have some beneficial effect, but maybe not as much as if you were, maybe you could say you were meeting the intention of whoever magnetized the water, you're meeting that intention halfway to do your part to better yourself.
Looking at the picture you showed, the water,
The droplets floating on top of the water? Yeah.
it made me think of how, made me think of the waters in the ocean, and where is it where the water meet the river and the ocean and they don't mix? Where is that?
Oh, like an estuary?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Salty
right?
water.
Oh, in Portuguese it's called Bararok.
Oh, okay.
So they don't mix, or they do mix?
No, they don't.
Oh, really?
It's the ocean meeting the river, and the water is right there, and you can ride the boat on top of both waters.
Yeah.
They look different, even the color.
Okay.
They don't mix.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's
Very interesting.
it's just like water has different density, you know, like even, you know how we see like an avalanche, you know, like comes down from a mountain? The same thing happens underwater. You can have an avalanche underwater. Like if you have like something that starts like a little slide or something, like in the mud mixes with the water that's mixed with the water has a totally different density than the rest of the water around it, so it creates an avalanche under the water. So same thing, yeah, with like a river meeting the ocean.
About the reason why that happens on top of the cup, maybe it's the memory of that water that's being poured, trying to read the other memory of the water that's there already.
Okay.
See if it can mix before it mixes in.
Okay.
Do you think that could be it?
Yeah. It could be it.
It gives you something to think about.
It does. And like another idea is like think of a cloud. Sometimes you see like a single cloud floating in the sky. Like how? Like what is that? Like, right, it's just one small cloud floating in the sky. So the conventional idea is that the way that a cloud forms is that there's like dust and particles of dirt in the air, and somehow water vapor condenses onto that little piece of dust or particle, and then that starts to create the cloud, and that's what keeps the cloud together. But I don't know, like I've always thought that was kind of weird. Like, like it could be that maybe like the same as these droplets, the cloud kind of has its own unique identity, and it's separate from the rest of the water vapor, and it kind of keeps that form of the cloud. I don't know.
Like the little Adam's family cloud, there was always the top of them.
Yeah.
You know, following them around.
Yeah, so that's something to think about. Any other questions?
Probably gonna read no more to figure it out. So.
Hmm?
They make me try to look, because I never would think about all this stuff about water.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's just so bizarre. Even just the fact that it floats, and you know, it doesn't make sense. Like, why is it floating? why is a solid floating on top of a liquid? Like, it doesn't really make sense. But yeah, this is a lot of things to think about. These are things that I think about all the time. You know, water is very, very strange. It's very unique. It's beautiful, and it has a lot of properties that we know about, and it seems like there's a lot of properties about it that we still have yet to understand. Yes, sir?
So you said that the scientists don't know where the water comes from on our planet. The oceans fill it up.
Right.
Right? Yeah. So I was watching a documentary the other day just about that. They don't know. Right? Yeah, they have this thing about the rocks and everything else. But in Genesis, Spiritist Genesis, right? The theory that they have over there is that in the beginning the planet was so hot that the lava, right, condensates into the atmosphere, and as the lava started cool down, as the planet started cooling off after millions and millions of years, the water, it was in the atmosphere, and then it dropped down as rain. Did that make sense?
Yeah, that is one of the theories, but it doesn't really account for the amount of water that we have, and why it stays as a liquid. But focusing on where the water came from.
So you're saying that the water is composed of three gases molecules, right?
Oh, well, no, two elements.
Two elements.
Yeah,
two
yeah.
Gases, right?
Two gases. Yeah, right.
And it combining those two, it should become another gas.
Right.
But instead of that, it becomes a liquid.
It's right. Well, it is a gas. Like we're breathing water now. There's water vapor in the air right now.
Right.
Up to 4%.
Up to 4%.
Right.
But so if you combine two hydrogen molecule with another molecule that is gaseous, it's going to still gas. You're saying that
Right.
only water, the combination of two gases.
I don't want to say only water. I'm sure that maybe there's some other molecule out there that kind of has the same property, but
Okay, so
but the majority of them.
of water, why it becomes liquid when combined with two gases? Right?
Well, why it remains a liquid on the surface of the Earth naturally?
I see.
Right, because the same types of molecules that have the same properties as water, or even heavier than water, in the same conditions, exist as gases.
I see.
But water exists as a liquid. Another interesting thing that I didn't really talk about is that Hydrogen is the most flammable element that we have. You know, it's very flammable. And then in order to have a flame or an ignition, you need oxygen. So the three things you need for a fire is you need you know, a fuel source, you need an oxygen source, and you need an ignition source. So it's interesting because you need oxygen for a fire, and then hydrogen is flammable, but then you combine the two together, and then it makes water, which extinguishes fire. So it's another interesting thing. Like that doesn't really have anything to do with anything, because you know that's how physics, that's how chemistry and physics work. You can even look at water, which is 2 hydrogen and 1 oxygen. You add just 1 more oxygen to that molecule, and you get hydrogen peroxide, which is toxic to us. So, another thing to think about.
A lot to study.
Yeah.
A lot to discover.
Yes, a lot to discover. So, yeah. So don't take things for granted. Always keep your mind open, and you know, who knows? You might be the next person to discover something amazing in your everyday life. Yeah. Any final questions?
So here it's saying that the Atlantic and the Pacific Oceans don't mix.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was reading something that the Atlantic Ocean is much younger than the Pacific.
That I didn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's new ocean. Yeah, ocean floors being formed in the Atlantic.
Yeah.
There's the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. But I did not know that the Pacific Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean doesn't mix. That's interesting. Yeah.
So there's, and I think that one thing is, Manny, that we can take it from all this is understanding the reason why we do magnetize water and use it as a medicine for your pet. I use that a lot. I mean, every time I just found a kitten.
What? I'm sorry?
Lost. So the first thing I did was magnetize water and give them that magnetized water. And we take it for granted. Like sometimes we pay thousands of dollars for one medicine, and water could be, you know, the intention and being able to keep memory. It's huge.
It is.
Because if they magnetize and put the intention of health in the water, why they magnetize it? You can do that for your own child, or anybody that is sick. You can spend a little time, and it was amazing that you said that the guy who did that was spending 1 hour in prayer on the water. It's important to remember that it's not about putting your hand up for 3 seconds. You really need to do the effort right there. And you can help a lot of people doing simple little things.
Yeah, exactly, yeah, that was a good point. That's another reason why I like studying this, and this is a reminder for myself, because even I magnetize here, and even I don't drink the magnetized water as often as I should. I don't magnetize the water in my house, but I believe in it, but I don't do it. Yeah. So it's just one of those things that just knowing about it doesn't necessarily apply to your everyday life, but the more that you do, the more that you will benefit from it, and the more that you'll understand. Were you want to say something?
You can do that in your home also, so you can pray, and then you can magnetize your water in your home.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, you can. You can magnetize your own water. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, and if just the final thing that I'll say is if you want to do magnetism in your house, you don't have to have anything special that you have to say. You can just be genuine, or you can even have like a nice prayer that you want to read. You can read your whatever prayer you want to select, and you can read that as you magnetize your water, or you can listen to some music and magnetize the water.
And when you think about it, I don't want to bring that subject, but I'm going to bring it. It says in Osula that if you're going to drink water in somebody's house, they have such a negative environment. Well, that makes sense. Right?
So the water is like more toxic.
Water that stays in that house on the refrigerator. Let's see that you go into somebody's house
Let's
that
bring our own water now.
Yeah.
I'm getting so, if water is able to hold memories and hold energy, and then you go to an environment that your friends that is going, it's very toxic, and then all of a sudden it's in there in the water, and you say, hey, can I have a water? And then you drink it.
Not coming back.
Yeah.
It might be right. Full.
Yeah, and it's not to say that you're going to get sick from the water, you know, but because a lot of it has to do with, you know, what your vibration is, you know, what you believe and what you have inside. But yeah, it definitely will have an effect. Absolutely. Yeah. Could have. Yes. Any more questions? Okay.
I think the same as our energy when we are feeling down and somebody else is sick, you know, they have a flu and they come around me and they come around her and she doesn't get the flu and I get the flu and we both touch their hands and we both touch our mouth.
Yeah.
But you know, I don't get the flu.
But the biggest thing is that when you study water, you understand how powerful, and yes, a chair can hold energy, but water can do much more. You know? So when you drink that water from a toxic environment, it's not like you can get cancer or anything, but it definitely, you know, can do something at least in your emotional side. So when you are conscious of stuff like that, you can realize and you can appreciate the water that you drink, and you have no idea what's in here.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, you think about the water that you get into your house from the plumbing. You know, think about how much that's been treated. Think about where that water has been. Think about how many people that water has been in contact with. You know, it's.
But do you know what the Indian people from India do? I have a customer that he's from India. What they do is they put water in copper.
Oh, okay. A copper container.
They cover and they pray upon the water of their house, and then they drink it. They will never drink a water that we don't know where it comes from.
You said where do they do this?
Yeah.
In India?
Yeah, in India. They're very careful with the water that they drink. And copper, it's one of the things that protects the water from getting the vibes from. That's why even this, when they drink water, they drink it from a copper bottle to carry on with you, because it helps for the water not to assimilate the energy of your place.
It protects the water while you pray on it.
It's a very important subject because we can start to be more, you know, concerned and consciousness of the water that we drink.
Yeah.
Not only if it's filtered or not, but what kind of energy we have it on it. And drink it with respect because it's life.
Yeah, it's something to be mindful about. We obviously need water. We drink it every single day.
Yeah.
And the more that we understand it, the more that we're mindful about it, the more beneficial it can be for us. All right, so thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Good job, man.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you.
It's off. It's off.
Huh? I magnetize my water when I drink. I buy small bottles now of aluminum and put in there. No more plastic. All right, let's go to the announcements here, and we go into the passing. Ana, did you give the letters to the people for the... Você deu a carta para o pessoal psicografar? Okay, cool, thank you. Alrighty. All right, this is in Portuguese. I need it in English. Inglês só. Yeah, reminders. So every Tuesday we have meditation. Okay, 4 different people giving meditation here in different Tuesdays. Cynthia, Roberta, and Juan. 7 o'clock every week. Remember, we're going to be closing some of the work here at the center for the end of the year. The only thing we're going to be keeping is the public lectures, Monday, Saturday, and Wednesday. All the classes is going to